I've used it every day.
Okay, Mayor.
You're a
ready.
pastor. You're right on time, Billy. You're right on time. All right. Come on up to the podium. Lead us in our invocation.
All right. Well, thanks for y'all's patience. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you. Thank you for this city. Thank you for these people who sacrificially serve. Thank you for your grace on our lives. Lord, like we always pray, I pray for your blessings over our city. I pray for our first responders, our police and fire, that you would keep them safe as they keep us safe. And Lord, I pray that you would give this city council and our mayor extreme wisdom as they lead us. So we honor you and worship you in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Thank you. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
I would like to call the regular meeting of the Milton City Council for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025 to order. The city encourages you to review tonight's agenda carefully. Each citizen who chooses to participate in public comment must complete a comment card and submit it to the city clerk prior to the agenda item being called. While the Milton rules allow a speaker to turn in their comment card up until the clerk calls the agenda item, once the agenda item is called, no more comment cards can be accepted. Will the city clerk please call the roll and make general announcements?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Be happy to call roll for the January 22nd, 2025 regular city council meeting. I would like to remind those in attendance to please silence all cell phones at this time. As the mayor mentioned, if you would like to make a public comment card is required prior to the agenda item being called. If you are representing an organization, a notarized affidavit is required stating you have the authority to speak on behalf of that organization. Please review tonight's agenda, and if you'd like to make a comment, bring your comment cards to me now. Demonstration of any sort within the chamber is prohibited. Please refrain from any applause, cheering, booing, outburst, or dialogue with any person speaking. Anyone in violation may be asked to leave. Mayor and Council, as I call roll this evening, please confirm your attendance. Mayor Peyton Jamison.
Here.
Councilmember Andrea Veerhoff.
Here.
Councilmember Doug Haney.
Here.
Councilmember Juliet Johnson.
Here.
And Councilmember Jan Jacobus. For the record, Councilmember Carol Krugerly is running a few minutes late, and Councilmember Phil Kramer is absent. Mayor, you do have a quorum. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next is approval of the meeting agenda. I would like to add an executive session to discuss personnel, land acquisition, and/or litigation. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as read,
Second.
including the executive session.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Verhoff to approve the meeting agenda with the addition of an executive session. If you will
Voting
please
is open.
place your votes. There's Guthrie.
Can you switch?
Oh, I didn't submit.
Thank you. It just takes in a second.
All right, that motion passes. Okay, do we have any public comment?
We do not, sir.
Okay, I'll waive public comment and we will ask you to call the next item.
Mayor, we'll go right into consent agenda. That first item is going to be approval of the January 6, 2025 regular city council meeting minutes. It's agenda item number 25019. Our next item is approval of a vendor equipment storage agreement and liability waiver between the city of Milton and Milton Veterans Memorial Markers, Inc. to store their equipment on city property. It's agenda item number 25020. Mayor?
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read?
Make a motion to approve the consent agenda as read.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Haney and a second from Councilor Johnson to approve the consent agenda as read. Please submit your votes. Okay, that motion passes. Okay, we'll move on to reports and presentation. Will the city clerk please sound the item?
Mayor, that item is an update on the green print plan for the green space bond properties. Our Public Works Director, Ms. Sarah Leaders.
All right, good evening. So this is an update on the green print planning effort for the green space bond properties. I'll first highlight some background information to get to where we are today, and then there'll be some discussion on the next steps for this plan. Starting out with our green space bond language. So this was taken directly from the ballot language was for conservation land for the purposes of providing recreational trails, protecting natural areas and wildlife habitat, preserving agricultural land, protecting water quality, and providing parks and park improvements. It's a quick highlight of the status of the various green space properties. We have several that are open either in different phases or just limited uses. You can see that list on the top, and then we have several properties that are not open yet and others that have portions that are open. The strategic plan included a goal to look at protecting and enhancing Milton's green spaces to maintain the natural beauty of the city for present and future generations, with an outcome measure to look at a green space plan and strategy, which is the purpose of the green print. We've identified this as a plan to identify appropriate usage management and possible improvements on green space properties that respect Milton's rural heritage and align with sustainable best practices. The key components of this plan strategy are looking at future improvements, conservation areas, environmental protection measures, proposed access, potential uses and amenities, as well as looking at prioritization and how we implement improvements on these properties. This is a full list of the different meetings and input we've had so far, and just a couple I wanted to highlight on this slide, starting with a committee steering group. What we did was involve the various committees that had components that related to these properties, from Equestrian Committee, Parks and Rec Advisory Board, the Milton Trails Committee, and at that time, the Green Space Advisory Committee. And we pulled a few members from each of that and formed a group that we also met with to talk about various planning elements. So that group has been very important in the process so far. We've had various surveys, some general public input sessions, with 2 held so far, and we were planning a third, but are kind of waiting on this last piece before we move ahead with that third public input session. Here's some additional feedback and things we've done to date. I'm going to start with the very bottom, and that was about a year ago in January and February of last year. We did some direct neighbor feedback where we offered one-on-one meetings with anyone that abutted the green space properties. And a lot of the feedback we got through that effort was related to conservation, wildlife, and then just identifying some areas for protection. In June of last year, we came before you and provided an update on the concept elements, the different areas we were looking at. And we introduced the idea to look at getting some professional services kind of advisement on these land designations, particularly conservation, what warrants an area to be designated for conservation. So we didn't have any numbers related to what that would cost or what the scope would look like, but there was interest in looking into that option at that time. Also, over the summer, we were able to get the results from the National Community Survey, where we had a custom question related to our approach for green spaces. And really what the data that we can pull from this that had the strongest percentage of support was looking at partially open with some off-limit areas for conservation and wildlife, which is a lot of what we heard from the public as well, is the other categories of either 100% open or 100% closed had a majority that opposed those approaches, but really this was the best balance of all the components of what the green spaces were about. And these are the proposed land uses. You saw these last summer, just the different kind of, we call them buckets of types of areas that could be within each of the green spaces. There could be green spaces that only had 1 or 2 of these, but this was kind of the base of what all we could do with the land available on these green space properties. Okay, and now to the discussion point. Our current approach so far has been that this has been a staff-led plan. We have really heavily relied on the committees, that steering committee group as well, and then the community input on the plan so far has really driven how we approach planning these green spaces. So the discussion point and what we'd like to talk about tonight is we've done additional research on what kind of that advisement on particularly conservation areas looks like. So do we want to pause with the staff-led effort and procure a consultant to help us really define different components of these areas that make them good candidates for conservation on the overall green space? Feel like we have an opportunity to look at other land use type advisements, whether it's trail feasibility, agricultural areas, rural views. We did that at the Milton City Park and Preserve. We looked at what were some of the invasive species and what kind of new plantings would we want to do. So there's some future opportunities that as we move kind of to the next phase of the opening the green spaces that we might want to look at. We just wanted to pause and make sure we were going the right direction with the planning of these, and wanted to provide a little more information on the environmental assessment at this point. So the options kind of related to that are, number one, we could continue this green plan as a phased planning effort, where phase one is, as we've been doing, is the staff-led, committee-supported, community input-driven. We could, in this first phase, go ahead and identify some of the access points and just a few minimal initial improvements or uses if there are any relevant to the green spaces that aren't not open yet. Then as we got those first improvements in, we could look at future phases to explore further refinement of those and uses, and look at the consultant services as a future phase. Option two would be to pause on the staff-led and go ahead and at least on the environmental component to get that expertise to make sure we're not proposing a improvement or access in an area that's very critical to the site. And number three is we could look at this from an even more detailed master plan on the usage for the green spaces. So hopefully that's provided enough input to at least get some discussion on which option you all would like to go with the green print at this point. And if we go with option one, we still have the opportunity to do some more area refinement in the future. It would just at least get the process rolling of some initial improvements and usage of some of these that have not been opened yet.
Quick question, is the 40 on those plans, the $40,000 consultant, which one does that include?
So that is just the environmental piece. That's the defining the natural areas, looking at what wildlife habitats, if there's some protected species, looking at some additional wetlands or water quality. And then that one also includes a unique thing we hadn't thought of before, which is looking at the feasibility for a mitigation credit. So when a roadway project or development impacts a wetland or stream buffer, they can pay a credit to a receiving area that has either preserved or made improvements to their wetlands or stream buffer. It's quite a process to get the property eligible, but it is something we wanted to see if it's even feasible on any of our, it's mainly 4 properties that have water features that could be receiving areas for that mitigation.
Would the consultant work with the steering committee? Like, will they be working like together?
We had not proposed them. We were just going to allow them to do the assessment to really qualitatively decide what areas were fit in that conservation category.
I have a question. How long would it take for the environmental assessment?
I believe it was 4 or 5 weeks.
Oh, that's good.
Okay.
So that really doesn't delay number one. I mean, you can kind of go through. Well, personally, I feel that having pushed the green space bond and been out campaigning for it back in the day, and we promised to keep things natural, but also incorporate usage. I feel like we'd be remiss not to know, and I've written to Mr. Krokoff a long time ago, not to know where those areas should be by an expert who can sort of look around the corner with all things considered. So I'm inclined to do that. But I have a question. Are we past the point of thinking that everything needs to have a finished trail? Like, I know Cooper Sandy, one of the nice things about it is sort of a rugged beauty. I mean, it's, not everything has to be Providence Park. Are we taking into consideration all the different characters of the places? Not trying to put bathrooms everywhere and spend all that money?
Right. I would agree with that, that it's the type of trail is going to fit with the characteristics of the property.
Yeah.
So if it's, tree covered and just kind of
I
a
know.
rugged path, we would want to keep that same feel that it currently has and not really change the.
Because not
change the
everybody has to
nature
go
of
to the
it.
bathroom on a 20-minute walk, so. Or pack a snack. So there we go.
And I mean, I don't have an issue with the consultant because, we spent so much money, the taxpayers spent a lot of money to buy these properties, and we want to make sure we do it right. The last thing we want to do is probably go in there, disrupt some stuff that we probably shouldn't have, and cost more money to put it back. So I think we'll probably end up saving money if we go this route.
And I'd really like to know how we can allow people to fish on some of these other properties, like with a little pier or something, and how we do that safely. It doesn't get overfished and it's safe for, little kids and their parents. And, what does that look like?
I think that if we do the consultant, it gives the community input a little bit more information to work off as well. I think if you don't do that, then they're kind of flying blind. Whereas if we've got the consultant information, they can make some better decisions too. So I'd like to see us use the consultant.
And I'd like for the consultant and folks to have access to give input to the consultant, because we had somebody in here from one of those properties who's really qualified. You remember that gentleman?
It was the Hamby property.
Yeah, he was very
adjacent
qualified.
neighbors.
We probably should enable that kind of an opportunity too.
Okay. So that could change the scope just slightly to have that interaction between at least some public involvement as well as that effort. So we'll refine that scope. Like I said, it was in the $40,000 ballpark range. So we just wanted to make sure that was still, now that we had a number and we had a scope idea, that was still the direction before we pursued that. So we'll get that fine tuned, and that'll be before you as a professional services agreement to move ahead with that.
Good, thank you.
Any other questions for Sarah?
Just real quick, Sarah. So for option 2, the environmental assessment is the 40 grand. What is option 3 if we engaged he or she in an entire master plan? Is that like when we step out of it and he or she gives us a final master plan of all the properties?
Right. That's more along the line of what was done at the Milton City Park and Preserve. So it had a very high level look at some of these other areas, like the trail. It laid out some potential trails. It looked at, in general, what land management could look like. And then as we got into implementing that project, we did do additional hydrology studies and land management plans. But the master plan was really kind of dove into all those areas a little more than we have so far in the green print. So we could even, instead of going with just the environmental assessment from the consultant, we could say we'd like to touch on some of these other areas as well. And like I said, the environmental was limited to the 4 main ones with water features on them, because it primarily relates to conservation around those as well as the wildlife. But it would expand to some of the other, I think Webb was the only green space that's not on that list of 4
Okay.
that's not open yet.
Were you asking from a price perspective?
I was
Like,
asking, knowing the difference, and then what is the difference in cost? Like, what are we getting in addition if we do a master plan, and what does that cost difference look like?
The higher level on the trails, as well as some of the landscape and invasive species look at least double. That would probably kick us into needing to do a request for proposals, which
Mhm.
adds a lot to the timeline. So larger scale work on the consultant side
Okay.
to look at the master plan. And we still have the opportunity. I wanted to show you all, let's see. These were just a couple examples of how these 2 properties that are open have gone through the planning process, with Milton City Park and Preserve being the most detailed with the master plan first. Then we moved into designing based on that, but at the same time looked at land management as well as hydrology, and then moved into phase 2. So there were various points with the master plan just being kind of that framework, and then more detailed work on that one. Whereas Freemanville Birmingham was more on that option 1, where it was we looked to the Milton Equestrian Committee for input. Just did a in-house design of that parking, basically just access was the main improvement there, and then we're able to get it open. So that's kind of the opposite ends of the spectrum on those kind of 3 approaches, with Freemanville Birmingham being more of that approach number 1, and Milton City Park and Preserve being number 3. So we'll proceed with number 2, kind of in the middle between those, and at least get the environmental components, and we'll refine that scope just to make sure we include community input intertwined with the consultant work.
Sounds good.
Yeah,
Thank you
good by me.
very much.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, there are no first presentation or public hearing items. Moving on to zoning agenda, will the city clerk please read the zoning rules and sound the item?
Mayor, when the mayor and council consider a zoning agenda, these items include rezoning petitions, modifications of zoning use permits, and associated concurrent variances. In addition to ordinances, resolutions, and text amendments, the applicant, all those speaking in support of an application, and all those speaking in opposition of the application will be allowed a total of 10 minutes to present the petition. If time remains, the opposition will be allowed to rebut. The applicant may choose to save some of the time for rebuttal following the presentation by the opposition. Since the burden of proof is upon the applicant will be allowed to make closing remarks, provided time still is allotted. All the speaker cards will be called in which the number they were received. The Planning Commission has heard the rezoning items, and the recommendations have been forwarded to the mayor and council for consideration and disposition. The applicant shall not submit any material to council during this meeting, and all material would have already been submitted to the Community Development Department. When an opponent of a rezoning action is made within 2 years immediately preceding the filing of the rezoning action being opposed, campaign contributions aggregating $250 or more to a local government official of the local government, which will consider the application, it shall be the duty of the opponent to file a disclosure with the governing authority of the respective local government at least 5 days prior to the Planning Commission meeting. A violation of relevant statute constitutes a misdemeanor. Therefore, if you've contributed $250 or more to a council member and you've not filed a disclosure prior to the Planning Commission meeting, the city attorney strongly suggests that you have someone else speak on your point of view. Tonight's zoning item is consideration of a text amendment, RZ 2404, to Article 7A Crabapple Form-Based Code is Section 7A 1.6, density calculations of the Unified Development Code for the city of Milton, Georgia, as it relates to the number of building units and parking structures. It is agenda item number 25013. Our zoning manager, Miss Robin McDonald.
Good evening, Mayor and
Got
City
it
Council.
out.
I feel like it's been a while since we've got to meet this way. But, this is just a housekeeping item, shouldn't take too long. But the purpose of the text amendment only to the Crabapple Form-Based Code is to correct a change made when we adopted the UDC as it relates to the number of criteria to qualify for the increase of building units for each parking space within a parking structure. The proposed requirement of one criteria will further encourage structured parking to be built by developers. And this has very much been an incentive to have some structured parking in the area. Staff recommends that only one criteria be required because previously what was adopted into the UDC had required all, I believe, 3 items. So this is the actual text. And so basically we're saying that that the number of building units allowed on a site might be increased by 2 building units for every 1 parking space that meets one of the following. So that is basically the gist of it. And in regards to public participation, nobody wanted to hear this exciting text amendment to the CZIM, so nobody was there. And at the Planning Commission, it was unanimously recommended by the Planning Commission on December 19th. So with that, I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Robin? Do we need public comment on this?
We do not, sir.
Okay. I will close public comment, and if there's no more discussion, I'll open it for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve agenda item number 25-013.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Cookerly and a second from Councilmember Jacobus to approve agenda item number 25-013. Please place your vote.
Oh, I forgot about this, sorry.
Okay, that motion passes. All right, there are no unfinished business items. Moving on to new business, will City Clerk please sound the items?
Mayor, that item is consideration of a resolution to set qualifying fees for the 2025 nonpartisan general municipal election. It is agenda item number 25021. And Mayor and Council, let me just kind of reiterate, there is a nonpartisan election that will be held this year on November the 4th, 2025. It's going to be for 4 seats. It's going to be for the mayor, and then, of course, for District 1, 2, and 3 of Post 1. The election code does require that the city council for Milton sets and fixes and publishes the qualifying fees before February the 1st, 2025, for each municipal office to be filled in this year's election. Additionally, the election code also states that the candidate qualifying fees shall be 3% of the gross salary of the office paid in the preceding year of a salaried office. So to let you all know, the mayor qualifying fee will be $894, and the council member seat fee for qualifying will be $594. The ads have been sent to the Milton Herald. They will be published twice in the Milton Herald before February the 1, and we are in compliance with the election code. So you approving this resolution will cement that qualifying fee for the year.
Got it.
Great presentation.
Thank you very much. That was off the cuff, too.
Since it's required, I think we'll approve it.
Is there any public comment on this?
There are none, sir.
Okay, I will open it for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve agenda item number 25-021.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilor Haney and a second from Councilor Johnson to approve agenda item number 25-021. Please place your vote. And that motion
Just one more.
is unanimously. All right. All right, well, City Clerk, please sound the next item.
Mayor, that next item is going to be the consideration of a resolution for the city of Milton, Georgia, directing the sale of certain city-owned real property located at Hopewell Road. It's agenda item number 25022. Our city attorney, Mr. Ken Gerard.
Mayor, members of the council, thank you. I will handle this quickly. In front of you is a resolution that marks the first step in the disposition of public property. Georgia law is fairly stringent with respect to how governments dispose of particularly their real estate. And so we have to follow the statute in an exacting way. With respect to this particular piece of property, we've colloquially decided it's called the Hopewell Road property. It's 38.921 acres of real property And this resolution, should you approve it, is the first step that authorizes my office and city staff to then actually go out for we're going to call a public sealed bid process. So in other words, this isn't going out for sale tonight, but this is the first step and sort of places the guardrails upon this sealed bid opportunity. And if you don't mind, what I'd like to do is go to the number of provisions of the be it therefore resolved section. The statute and all of the appropriate law is up in the preamble. That's all covered. This isn't the first time that I have managed one of these things, but what is important is at the bottom of page 1. So a couple things. Number one, I know it is the will of the council that with respect to this 38.921 acre parcel called the Hopewell Road property, that you wanted to set a reserve. And anybody that's ever done anything on eBay knows what a reserve is. It's the same concept. It's the idea that there is a certain mark that must be met with respect to someone that bids for this property that must be realized before the council has to even consider it. And if it doesn't meet that mark, then the auction, if you will, is automatically over and we don't have to consider any of the bids. And that mark, of course, is $5.159 million. I believe that is our acquisition price, and that is the reserve that we are going to set forth in the legal ad when we run it for this sealed bid opportunity. Once we actually commence the sealed bid, the bid will remain open for 90 days. That's number two. And may ask me, for instance, you may say, well, when does the 90-day window begin? It begins when that legal ad first hits the paper, okay? Because that's when the public at large is put on notice that, there's this bidding opportunity, and if I want to take advantage of it, that I have this 90-day window to take advantage of it. So that is the second sort of step. We have built into this resolution because we want to make sure that individuals, only serious individuals with the ability to close on the piece of property are going to take part in this process. This process is expensive. For instance, you're having to pay my office to coordinate some of it. And so we want to make sure that only responsible, serious-minded people are going to engage. And that's why we're requiring $50,000 of escrow. And that's sort of an important element of this that hopefully will separate those that aren't really serious from those that are. The other thing that we are doing is that city staff are going to be authorized, and actually this resolution serves as the authority and approval of that, to secure a soil study on the property. Now, this accomplishes a couple of things. Number one is if you are a prospective bidder, it will allow you to go take a look at the soils and make an informed decision about, for instance, things like yield. Okay, that's sort of an important driving factor in what someone may decide is important to bid on the property, and that might accelerate the process a little bit. I would submit to you, however, that we're making very clear, and we'll make clear in the bid package or the bid information, that just because we've secured our own soil study on the property, that you're free to come reference. We make no warranties and no guarantees. So if you want to really double check, then you're going to need to go out and probably spend the money to do that themselves. And I'll work with staff to make sure that people have a reasonable right of access to get on the property to conduct their own soil study, should they choose to. In other words, if you want to take advantage of ours, you can, but we're not guaranteeing every square inch of whether that soil will perk or not. Resolution would authorize that. Then there's some obvious things. No financing contingencies. Okay, we're not a bank. If you want to buy the property, you need to come cash in hand and have that ready to provide at closing. And then this resolution would otherwise authorizes my office and staff to take any other action necessary to consummate, hopefully, what is a successful sealed bid opportunity on this property. Mr. Mayor and Council, any questions?
One question, you mentioned the 5.1 was the acquisition price. The acquisition price was a little bit less than that.
That's the appraised value.
That's the appraised value?
That's
Yeah.
that's the appraised value.
Well,
Okay.
I mean, I was really on a tear there,
I know,
so I'm
just
glad
wanted to
no
know.
one interrupted me because
All right.
I was just getting started. So material facts, sorry about that.
All
I'll let
good.
those out.
I used a lot of restraint on that.
Thank you. I thought I came out of your
It's
seat.
so new for me. I'm working on it every day.
Other than that, yes. Any other questions?
Any questions for Ken? Do we have any public comment on this?
Mayor, I did receive one
Yeah.
email to be read into the record. This is from Tim Enlow at 13075 Bethany Road. According to property owners on Hopewell, if the park went in, it would cancel the farm. During council debate, members stated that an active park next to horse farms was not warranted. Comments from Paul Moore and Carol Kirkley advocating for another location, referencing the disruption said appraisal could have on the equestrian lifestyle. Now the Hopewell property is for sale. Curious, why is it okay for some of the few remaining horse farms to suffer through constant noise, pollution, traffic, and lights, while others are protected? This is beyond a double standard in the clearest form. This is also a violation of the 14th Amendment. All remaining horse farms should be treated exactly the same. You and yours bend over backwards for some, but ignore others, even when the exact same issues are in play. I will add this injustice within this city to a long list of lawless acts and bias, which include illegally diverting stormwater onto our farm of 45 years twice, turning once healthy pastures into mud, withholding evidence of a crime, illegally trespassing onto our property while threatening me with the arrest for state-approved agricultural practices conducted on our property for 3 generations via Georgia Code 2-1-6. In addition to the treatment of my late mother, as elder abuse is a crime, under Georgia law, it's a felony for a person to knowingly and willfully impose mental anguish upon an elder person as defined under OCGA 30-5-3. Such treatment pushes one to do things they otherwise would not do, albeit legally. I implore you to practice objectivity, equality, and abide by the law before it's too late. Mayor, that concludes public comment for this item.
Okay, I'll close public comment and I'll open it for a motion.
Make a motion to approve agenda item number 25-022.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion from Councilmember Jacobus and a second from Councilmember Cookerly to approve agenda item number 25-022. Please place your vote. Okay, that motion passes unanimously. Moving on to council reports. Council, have anything to report on? Nope. All right, with that, we will open it for a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel, land acquisition, and potential litigation. Do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn into executive session?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Mayor, I am going to ask you to vote
Oh,
on
you are?
that one, on
Okay.
this one. So my apologies. Councilmember Veerhoff, you are the motion, and the second was,
It was the opposite.
Johnson.
Oh.
Johnson
Verhoff.
made the
I
motion.
gotcha, okay.
Thank you.
I did. Mayor, give me a reconvene.
Okay, can I get a motion to reconvene?
Make a motion to reconvene?
Second,
All in favor? Aye. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.